Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. And okay, so let me describe the image. I mean, you can describe if you like, but you want to describe?
No, you're looking at it.
Yeah,
I'd have to find it.
Okay. So let me describe. Okay, so the light is afternoon light, not quite sunset. On the right hand, there's like the one quarter, the right bottom quarter, is essentially this grass that's kind of going from green to brown. It's at elevation, it seems, because the clouds seem quite close, but they're kind of cumulus. There's basically a dirt path leading up from the bottom, from the foreground inside. At the end, there's a tree caught in the light, and there's a fence on the left.
Yep.
Could be in the Azores, could be, I don't know. So what's this image?
Yeah, this is coming up the back top of the road right here behind the center in Costa Rica. And it's a very, very steep hill right behind the property. And so basically, if we want to go for a walk, we have to go up this hill.
Right out.
Go up this hill to get anywhere.
Right.
And beyond this hill, though, there are cow fields and jungle and creeks, and it seems to go on infinitely. I know it doesn't, but there are no houses to speak of, maybe just a few barns. The hills are alive. A lot of magic mushrooms right now. A lot of still pottery shards, like you find evidence of, people who lived here maybe not that long ago. So yeah, this is at the top of the road. And
why does this image spark some emotional reaction where you think, when I say to you, okay, send me a couple of images, so why this one?
I think, first of all, it's so unlike any pictures that I take. Like, I usually really take close-ups of plants, flowers, and like details. I'm really usually I'm so interested in details that I can go on a whole trip to Hawaii, and even if I'm with people I love, like, you'll never see a landscape, you'll never see a human being. Like, you'll have no idea actually where I am in the world, except for close-ups of flowers.
Nice.
So this is,
well, the links you offer, you sent. I mean, you do have beautiful images. I mean, so but now that you mention it, I'm like, yeah, you're right. It's from what I've seen, they tend to be close-ups. So this is quite unusual. But if you were to make a connection,
yeah. So I think because for me, this is like it's a cusp point, between the known and the unknown. So and that's personal. That's not necessarily a stranger looking at this photo wouldn't feel the same thing. But for me, it has to do with come up the hill, and then this world opens up. And in this particular moment, the light was so beautiful, and, the sky was so vast, and this really kind of mangy looking tree just had such character and seemed so welcoming. And right at the base of that tree, there's the fence. You can open there's the barbed wire fence and go through and start going on the paths through the hills. So to me, it has to do with a sense of promise.
The closest city is how far away?
So Tilarán is a small town, and that's 45 minutes away.
Okay.
The closest city, I guess, is Liberia, which is about an hour and a half, 2-hour drive.
Okay. So what was the draw that brought you into that place just then? Or not just then, but just in like, of all the places in the world, why are you there?
And here at the center in Costa Rica?
Yeah.
Well, partnership is a big part of it, right. Being in this relationship. Deepening, like, I've had a relationship with doing this kind of therapy, I guess, or counseling on and off, like really on and off for about 20 years. And there was a sense of wanting to deepen in my own relationship to the work that's happening here. And lastly, I would say also, I really do love this country. Like, I came to Costa Rica by myself when I was 17, and I was only supposed to stay for a week or two, and I stayed for over a year and then came back again for another year. And there's like a deep familiarity, a sense of home that, I've moved pretty constantly in my life, like moved countries and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
cities and homes and all of that. And it's rare for me to have any kind of a sense of home.
Sure.
And for some reason, there's intimations of that here.
Right.
So I would say those were the three main reasons.
Is what you're doing like the result of formal training in this specialist therapy therapeutic approach?
The organization, which is called Choose Again, is very, very, very specific in what it offers. And I have been formally and informally involved with it for a long time. So I have not trained in psychology, for example, in school.
Okay.
But nor have I cobbled together a practice, I would say fairly formal intensive training in this specific modality through this organization.
What kind of clients do you get?
It's a huge range.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a huge range. So when Choose Again started, it was mainly teenagers with addiction issues.
Oh, wow.
And I did work here back then, here at the center. I used to manage and run the center. And then slowly the clientele has shifted over time.
Wow.
As the organization has shifted. So now it's radically different. It's basically high-functioning people who may be depressed or have relationship issues or anxiety issues or are on a spiritual journey, because it has a fairly kind of, I don't like the word spiritual, but that's what they say, a fairly spiritual kind of, there's an aspect of it that could be construed as spiritual. Now it's a range. You know, we did a profile recently of kind of the average or the ideal client, and it ends up in part being people who are kind of at least in their 40s, you know, who have tried a bunch of stuff, who have tried marriages, have tried great careers, have like tried these things and thought, yeah, this isn't, you know, making me happy in the way that I thought it would.
So
that helps.
Dovetailing into this conversation, I read a book. I don't remember the title. Essentially, pretty provocative statement. Usually, it's women in their early 40s and men it's in their later 40s who are they're most miserable. So, in terms of well-being and happiness, lowest scores. Women in their early 40s, men in their late 40s. I'm in my late 40s. It's hitting me right between the eyes, for sure. I'm like, okay.
Sweetheart.
It's like, okay.
What do you think that is? What do you think that, I'm in my mid 40s, no, I think I came through my early 40s. I came through the misery, and now I'm like, yeah, I'm not having kids, and I'm clear, and I'm going forward.
No, yeah, it's a funny little moment. But then, okay, so from that book, a personal coach guy referred a book back to me. He goes, "Oh, you should read this again," because I'd suggested it to his wife, and he read it, and he was just like, "Yeah, it's completely. I really identify with it." It's called. Now it totally blanked. Basically, how to live and have other people dislike you. The Art of Living, and it's like by this Japanese author.
So wait, so you say it's hitting you hard, and we're not going to go into this too deeply, but I mean, we could, but can you just describe the kind of, like, what the sense is? Like, is there a sense, like, what the sense of your life, or does it have to do with, physical health, or does it, like, what is it, what is it that feels off?
I think what's really classic is that, certainly, I'm the sort of boundless optimism kind of person, and positivity and all this stuff. And then, basically you get to this wall where all of a sudden, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to be, superhuman and jump over tall buildings, or whatever. Just in a sense, kind of accepting the reality of my limitations. So for example, right now I'm in Hong Kong. And so there's COVID-19, which is pretty intense. Then there's the fact that China is dramatically and drastically changing the very nature of Hong Kong, which is, of course, very intense. Raising a girl who's 8 years old now. So, a slightly older parent, also very intense. And also just in terms of professionally, so it's one of these things where I'm kind of in the thick of it going kind of mental, and then finally reading that, oh no, this is actually pretty normal. It's like, oh, okay, it's okay. 5 minutes normal, fine.
Does that help it go away?
Well, denial's great, it carries you forth. So, it helps. Of course it helps. Of course it helps. But,
Yeah.
sometimes we can't solve things. So it's okay to just sort of accept them.
No, for sure. And in fact, the normalizing, like I remember reading this book ages ago, or not even, I didn't even read the book. I think I read a paragraph that was helpful, by Stephen Levine. And I think it had to do with dying. And I don't really read that kind of book, but anyway, I opened it up, and it was something like, it had to do with being very, very sick. I think maybe he had cancer or his wife had cancer. And he said the tendency is to take it personally and to say, oh, this is my cancer and I'm, suffering from this. And what have I done wrong? And, all of this stuff. And in fact, I've noticed that too when I'm physically sick. It's easy to start beating myself up somehow and feeling down. And instead he suggested saying, this is what it feels like to have cancer, or this is this is,
right.
Or like you're saying, like, this is what it feels like to be a man in his late 40s.
Yeah.
And it somehow, by making it impersonal, there's a sense of it's not such a big deal. Everybody goes through this.
But on the other hand, not necessarily. Right? Like,
no, I'm having a great time. Like, and also I love like helping and what we're now, there are only 5 of us here, right? In isolation. But we're, we have like online circles and doing on a one-on-one sessions.
Right.
We're working with the whole family who's in quarantine together.
Oh, wow.
For the first time ever, and chatting with them every week. And so it's wonderful to be able to offer, insight and just be an outside force,
I'm really curious. Okay, so the last time we saw each other, we're in university. I was doing my bachelor's degree in creative writing, and you were doing your bachelor's degree in
everything.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, I was in arts and sciences at McGill. Like I had to fight to be in both arts and sciences.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so then you graduated. You left Montreal, and where did you go from there?
No, I ran away. I didn't graduate.
Okay.
No, I was there just for a year, and I couldn't handle it for various reasons. It
wasn't for you?
It wasn't for me. I went, God, it hasn't been a very noble life story, I have to say. That's one of the middle-aged, that's one of the things. It's like,
you see, that's like,
what happened to the grandeur?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I hear
Where's the Nobel Prize? I got sidetracked. So I went and did a degree in Colorado at Naropa University.
Oh, wow.
In creative writing, and the minor in Aikido, which I was practicing in Montreal at the time.
Oh, wow.
When I knew. And then I trained to become a sushi chef, and I did that for a bunch of years. And then I went and lived in the woods for a while because I thought it just has to be me and nature and nothing else, and see what happens as a psychological experiment that one could say didn't go well or was not as beautiful as I thought it would be.
As romantic.
It was not romantic at all. It was very beyond humbling to the point of actually depressing. And
it's super hard. It's not easy, I mean, that's the key to civilization. It makes life kind of easy.
No, I know. And it is a classic story, like that couples, for example, go to get away from it all and move to the woods where they promptly break up. Like that's true. And and also, I thought I'm someone who loves being alone, but being alone when you're generally around other people seeking, like in high school, seeking solace of, solitude, of course, makes sense. But being, on 10 acres in the snow through the winter by yourself in northern British Columbia is not the same.
Oh, dude.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So there was that. And then eventually I did a bunch of other writing and program development for different organizations. And then I got a job at the University of British Columbia.
So how did you get into ethnobotany?
Ethnobotany.
Yeah.
I discovered that field while I was living in Bermuda in probably 2000.
Okay.
2000. Through an essay written by this woman, Kathleen Harrison, whose hands are in the photo.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I read this essay that she wrote that had to do with certain indigenous perspectives. Like if you spend enough time with a plant, you get to know its song, and then you can heal with the song, not
Okay.
by material of the plant itself, that kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
And at the time, yeah, I knew that I loved plants really deeply, but I had kind of tried botany and biology, and it wasn't, dissecting things is not the only way to love something. In fact, it's not a good way to love something at all.
Mm.
And,
I,
so,
I love my dogs. I dissect them every night.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like in a lab, like yeah. So if you love a living thing, like how can you, this is why I dropped out of biology at McGill as well. Like how can you cultivate and strengthen living relationships with non-human beings, other than human beings, outside of a lab, basically, and outside of counting them or whatever these kind of typical relationships come down to. So exploring, it ends up being, ethnobotany, or the study of ethnobotany. And as Kathleen Harrison talks about, big botanical beings, like different cultures who have had understandings of, say, tobacco, or ayahuasca is an obvious one.
Yeah.
As, chocolate, or cacao.
It says a lot about you to that you read this essay, or you read this essay that moves you, touches you, inspires you, and you're just like, I'm going to meet the person who wrote that essay.
I'm going to quit my job. That's what I did. I'm going to quit my job, break up with my boyfriend, fly from Bermuda to California,
and go walk in the woods.
No, and find this woman.
Good
This woman who, it was brilliant, who wrote this essay. And she was teaching a summer class at a university in California. She said, sure, you can come join the class, whoever you are, lady. I was like 27, maybe 26, 27. And then I was the only one of the only students in the class who was there out of pure passion. Everyone else it was like an easy science credit or something.
That's so interesting. Okay.
Yeah. It was called Plants in Society, or Plants and People. And then she invited me to come spend weekends at her house because we got along so well.
Right.
And wow, like the conversations, like we had conversations, like they should be recorded. I mean, this woman is so brilliant. And it's just my heart and mind, like I was on fire. Like I hadn't met anyone who was willing to talk to me about plant intelligence. Like now it's common. Now you Google plant intelligence and there are all these books and ideas and people out there. But, at the time in 2000, it was like I wrote an essay on plant intelligence. There was one paper that I found where someone had sort of tentatively gone down that road.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Okay, assume
we just became good friends.
Okay, now Saskia, I'm a dummy.
Yeah.
I'm a dummy. Please give me an explanation of what you mean by plant intelligence. Like in simple language, so like a dummy like me will understand. I'm not pointing. What I'm trying to do is get you to open my mind.
It's a good question. Okay. Well, first of all, we can think about what plants are not, right? They're not inanimate, obviously. They're not without senses. There are a lot of, preconceptions that come along with how we culturally tend to see nature that now, rivers are getting personhood. This is being questioned. The sentience, consciousness of animals is being questioned all over the place. But I guess from my perspective, we come from a common ancestor with plants.
Mm-hmm.
I am interested in what their minds are like. Mm-hmm. And I would venture to say, like with every species, each species has general characteristics. The same you would say about dogs. Like all dogs are kind of have something in common, like there's a certain type of intelligence, type of behavior, etc. in a dog, but then also each individual is unique.
Absolutely.
You know that your dog is not the same as the dog next door,
sure,
even though they're both dogs. So I extend this to all other species, of course, and with plants, I mean, there are studies like the most basic things. Okay, we know that they see light and shadow and color and movement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we know that they can respond, like they're great chemical communicators.
Mm-hmm.
So they're basically just animals that, you know, developed in such a way that they can't run.
Right.
So they had to get you know, they're rooted and they're stuck in place. So they can't just have one of each organ the way we do. Like we just have one head, and if our head is bitten off, we're screwed, you know. Whereas for them, like they have their senses distributed throughout their body. So if a deer comes along and browses on them, they're still okay.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that they're any less intelligent than we are, or that we don't have anything we can learn from them. So the intelligence itself, which I've been skirting around, I just get a sense of like great quiet, great intelligence, great sensitivity, great responsiveness to the world, you know, incredible beauty, incredible showiness with flowers, for example. And each species grows in such a different way. I think you can learn from it. Like a vine is one thing, and a little moss is another, and an oak tree is another. And, you know, like in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, he says, or she, whoever wrote it, says something like, if you focus with perfect discipline on an elephant or other entity, you acquire the powers of that entity.
Right. Oh, that's interesting.
And I think that if you focus with perfect discipline on an oak tree, for example, you can learn a hell of a lot from it.
Okay.
And people do. You know, people do.
Yeah.
Let alone like ingesting it if you want to go down the entheogen route. But I'm not even talking about that. I just mean hanging out with something.
So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.